Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is number 2 video and we're just going to do a bit of an experiment today. I don't know what the outcome's going to be. We're just going to wing it. I'm using wax, coffee, stencils, old bits of recycled paper and newsprint. So fingers crossed. But please do join me, and if you are liking what you're seeing, it would be great if you would like the video and subscribe. Okay, so for today's experiment, I'm just using some copy paper, newsprint, a range of different stencils, beeswax, candle wax, some oil pastels. I'm labelling each of my pages with a waterproof marker so that I can look back and see what we've achieved. I'm going to start with the candle wax, and that's just some stencils that I bought at a $2 shop, those little round ones, little square ones. And be generous with the wax and give it a really good coating, pressing down nice and hard. That little stencil is a cake decorating stencil. And again, giving it a really good press down. And so now we'll move on to the next stencil, which is also a cake decorating stencil, and I'm going to use the beeswax this time. Again, make sure that we give it a really good coating with the beeswax. Be generous. The beeswax smells great too. So hopefully this is going to give us some interesting results. Time will tell. Now make sure that your marker is a waterproof one, because otherwise once it gets soaked in the coffee, you won't be able to read it anymore. So this is an old maths thingamajiggy. I always forget what they're called, but we'll use some oil pastels on this. I'm just going to use a white oil pastel because I want it to stay neutral. At this point, there's certainly scope for using different colours further down the track once we see some results and think about what we want to do with those results. Okay, and I'm just giving kind of a random evenish sort of coating of oil pastel to that stencil. Okay. Now we are going to go for, let's see, I think wax crayon. This is just a little cheap kids crayon. It's not a good one. It's just out of the kids' stash. My kids are adults now, but I've still got some of their art materials from when they were little. So this is just one of those, and I'm also just going to use that Lumicolor pencil, just a random scribble down the bottom just to see what that does, because it's a wax-based pencil, so it could prove interesting. So it's just about experimenting with any materials that you may have. Now this is newsprint. Again, I'm going to use the candle. The newsprint is much thinner than the copy paper, and I'm not going to use stencils here. I'm just going to do some random marks with the wax. So this is the beeswax. Just do some random lines, squiggles, what have you. See what happens. And I'm now going to have a go with these art bars, Derwent art bars. They're wax-based, but they're also waterproof. So I just thought it would be interesting to see what they would do, considering that they're going to be dipped into a liquid. Whether they stay strong like that, or whether they fade, whether they smudge, whether they run. So I just thought that would be an interesting experiment as well. And then I think we'll just finish with some white pastel, and again just some random lines just to see what happens. A bit of Lumicolor pencil, just keeping it random. So you can use pretty much any sorts of waxed or oil-based materials that you've got at home. Don't really have to have anything special. So now in comes the coffee. This is just a mixture that I made up with instant coffee. You can use your leftover grain coffee as well, but I just used some instant coffee. And basically just mix it up. You can make it strong, you can make it weak, depending on the depth of colour that you want in your paper. So now we're going to start scrunching. And this is where hopefully we'll get some coffee settling in our scrunch marks, and we can get some different depth of lines on the paper once we unravel it all. And with the wax in there, just to sort of give it a bit more depth. So hopefully that's the idea. So I'm just giving it a really good coat, but I don't want to squeeze it out too much because I want that coffee to pool in the crevices. So I'm not giving it a really big squeeze, just a bit of a drip. So we'll just speed it up through here because otherwise it's a bit monotonous, isn't it? So again, just giving it a light shake. A light shake. Don't want to squeeze it out too much. So I made this coffee mixture with just a couple of cups of water and a couple of spoons of coffee. But you can make it, as I said before, darker or lighter. So that's all of our coffee scrunching done, and I'm just going to spread them out to dry. I'm going to let them dry for about 24 hours. It's quite warm in Australia here at the moment. We're having a warm summer, and look at how that underpaper is going to end up looking. All right, so it's been 24 hours and it was a warm night, so hopefully they are dry. So let's start unscrunching. And they're still a fraction damp, would you believe, even though it's been a really warm night and morning. So if I wasn't as impatient as I am, I will put them back outside again for a while longer, but I am being impatient, so I'll persevere and just carefully unscrunch because, see that little rip there? When the paper's wet, it's going to rip much more easily than if it was fully dry. But I'm not particularly concerned because these are for collaging and junk journaling and collage covers of junk journals, etc. So they're going to end up getting ripped and rearranged anyway. So I'm not overly concerned. But if you wanted to keep them in more of a one piece, definitely let them dry out 100%, and the paper fibres will be stronger when they're dry. But you can see that there's some nice dark crinkles there where the coffee has pooled in the crevices. So that's looking good. When they're all dry, I think we'll be able to see the effects of the wax a little bit more. So I'm going to unscrunch them all. Since I've started, I may as well finish. And then I'm going to set them aside to dry thoroughly, and then we'll come back and have another look at them. That shouldn't take too long because, as I said, we're having a very warm, dry, hot summer, even in the south of Australia this year. Usually where I live, it's a little bit cooler, a little bit damper. But this year, it's I've never had to water my garden so much as I have this year. And I've been living in this particular house for over 20 years. So it's never been this dry. And it hasn't been this hot for years. Okay, and we're nearly done, and I'm liking the look of that underpaper too. If I do another set, I'll use the same paper, get it nice and coated and blotchy with that coffee. So there's some nice marks in there. You kind of want to see a little bit of the wax relief in there as well on that one. Okay, cool. Just sped this up a little bit to save some time. All right. Very nice. Okay. Set those aside to dry. And they are now dry, like magic. So let's have a closer look. So this is the beeswax one. And there is a bit of mottling down in the bottom there where I just ran my finger over. That's quite an interesting little mottle mark there. This is a candle with some stencils. And it's just not showing up very well on the camera at all, but I can see some really nice stencil marks on this paper when I'm eyeballing it myself. It was the cake stencil. This one was just the random scribbles. It's got a little bit of effect, but not a lot. This one was the art bar. It hasn't really run much or done much at all, but it has resisted the coffee. This was the a candle with getting myself distracted looking at all the pretty colours. Yes, okay, moving right along. The oil pastel was the one that we just looked at, and that I can also see really well, but didn't show up much on the camera. This one is the white crayon, and you can see a little bit there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to iron them. And that I'm hoping will bring out the wax a little bit more because we will have less crinkling. But it also helps to flatten out the page a bit. And again, I personally can really see that stencil there, but it's just really difficult to see on the camera. But yes, ironing is going to make them flatter so that we can use them more easily in our collages and what have you, because they'll press out and sit more flatly on our page. You, of course, can keep the texture in there depending on the project that you are working on, most definitely. But for all intents and purposes here, I'm just going to iron them all. And this oil pastel one, you can really see it quite well when I'm looking at it from my end. The other one that worked really well that you can see good from my end is the diamond, that diamond stencil that I used. That's worked out really well, but it's not translating very well on the camera. So if you try this at home, so the diamond one was the beeswax one, the very first one. And it does look really, really good. Okay, what we're going to do now is, we're still ironing. I'm stepping ahead of myself. I'm really liking the subtleties though, even though the wax, as I said, is turning up quite well at my end, but is not translating on the camera. But even at my end, it is still very subtle. But I'm loving those crinkles and loving those dark lines of the coffee. It looks really good. I've got my iron set on the lowest setting so that it's not too hot. I don't really want to put any scorch marks on the paper, although they would look good, but I don't want to distract from the coffee. So a nice low setting on the iron. You can also buy little mini irons from craft stores for your art room rather than using the household iron, but I don't mind using the household iron because I don't iron any of my clothes. Oops. For me, it's wash the clothes, hang them on the line nice and straight, take them off the line and put them straight away into the cupboard or the drawer so that they don't get creased. I've always done it that way. I'm particularly liking this paper. The wax has really turned out well on this little guy. I'm really liking it. And look at that. Wait till the iron moves. That little bit there in the middle. It almost looks like a pair of scissors. Scissor handles. That's random, not done on purpose, but anyway, that paper is a really nice paper, apart from the diamond one that I mentioned earlier. From my end, looks really, really good. But that's nice. I like that one too. Okay, and this is the last one that we're going to iron before moving on to another experimental, another little experimental step which I just thought of now as I was going through this process. A couple of the papers that haven't got a lot of wax relief effect on them, I'm going to turn into transparent papers. So again, using the same iron, still on the low setting, and I'm just putting welted wax all across that paper, and we'll just speed it up a little bit here now just to get through it a little bit more quickly. And this will make the paper transparent, which can be really effective in collages. Also really effective to make little tabs in envelopes and pockets. Really, really effective for those in your journals. Oh, that looks really good. I really like those textures, you know, with the crinkles. Has come up really well as well. And once this is dry and fully transparent, you'll be able to see the words coming through on the other side and the pastel coming through on the other side. So it'll be really effective. So this was just an old recycled piece of copy paper that had been printed on. So you can just see the red through there from that red writing. But I'll grab my old pink credit card, which I use for my collage, getting the air bubbles out of my collage. I just use old credit cards for those sorts of things, and you can definitely see where that's coming through. Once it dries, fully dries, it'll become more transparent, which is a really, really good effect. So, yeah, that's great. Really happy with that. And look at that underpaper. Okay, we'll do some newsprint now. Newsprint is much thinner than the copy paper, so it's going to be a bit more transparent. Again, really good for collaging projects and journaling projects. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so this will be more transparent, and it will be more transparent again once the wax fully dries. And they feel great too. The feel of the paper is really nice once it's all dry. Okay, and you can see my hand through there. So you can see it's more transparent than the copy paper. Okay, that's great. And of course the underpaper, which is butcher paper, what we call butcher paper in Australia. So it's what gets used, the butchers use to wrap up their meat, and it's also what fish and chip shops use to wrap up the fish and chips. I buy my butcher paper. I can't recycle it because I'm vegetarian, so I don't go to butchers and I don't go to fish and chip shops. But you can buy it in art supply stores, so that's where I source mine. Okay, and they're all of our papers. And I overall am happy. They're much more subtle than I thought, although I do like that. I think they're going to be really great in projects. Thanks. Okay, well that was interesting, wasn't it? The results not as dramatic as what I thought they may have been, although I did like those really dark coffee lines in the crevices of the crinkled newspaper. I like the textures that came about with the copy paper. Of course, the transparency of the wax is always great for layering up collages and what have you. And I actually do like the subtleties of the wax. I think that they will look really great as neutral papers in very subtle collages, contrasted with some more bold colours and what have you. But yeah, overall, interesting results. So I hope that you enjoyed that, and hopefully you're inspired to do some experimenting yourself now. If you do, I'd love to see what you produce. Yeah, and again, just a quick reminder, like and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. You can also follow me on Instagram, Dawns_creative_life. where I share lots of other stuff that I'm doing as well. Okay, well, thanks for joining me, and I hope to have another vid up soon. Thank you. See ya.